What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of What If Civilization Started in a Nuclear Fallout. Now, some things have changed to the map, so let me go and show the new layers. Now, this new layer called Names, we will be making names as we go on, but do comment names for countries, and I do think names for countries could be very cool, especially with this series, as we're sort of experimenting with countries that we don't even have to like fathom different types of countries and all that we can't even understand. Like it's insane. And then another thing that I did add is like a federation layer. So if I turn off the province map, boom, we got the federation like side. So you can see where the federal republics and federal states are of these countries. Now, not every country is a federation, but some countries are. Like India up here is not a federation. This side of India is. There's no federations in Europe. There's not many federations in the world. This country is a federation, as you can see. It's not. It's not done, but yeah, it's not gonna be perfect for right now. But a lot needs to be fixed with this. But we can do a lot to fix up this map. So for our first and very sad event, we see a new event happening, and it's going to be these two nations. Since their governments weren't properly set up, they will be collapsing into a few pieces. So first thing we see is Mozambique letting go of their puppet in here, and a new mutant nation is going to be formed. Now, this mutant nation is going to be different than before. It is going to be a democracy, unlike other nations. Here we also see this dark cyan country. This is how this land is divided up. Now, a major important thing with this is that this brown Angolan country will be getting this like little area over here, so they have all of like West Africa area, and then this Mozambique or not Mozambique, this purple Tanzanian country is going to be getting all this area over here, connecting themselves up with the Red Sea. Now, this is a very bad border. I do realize it. But it is Colonial Goals 101. Connect Adriatic to West Africa. They have all the way over here, and then they can trade over here. Yeah, W. And Suez Canal doesn't exist over here, but this side can trade with here. They can control more trade down here, so just generally makes sense. And then India is a lot more restricted, and they have to do a lot more. But here we see is a giant birth of dictatorships, and the one country we see here is this neutral democracy appearing here in the middle of chaos. And my bad, but this Italian team is a dictatorship. I forgot to make the ideologies, but I will do that. But this Angolan team is going to monopolize all of West Africa. Now, monopolizing all of West Africa will be a pretty major event for any nation in this area. And just monopolies are gaining power. By the way, this is the ideology mess. If you do want anything changed, let me know. But this is what the borders look like right now. Major border changes. But let's move on to something else. All right, let's go to our daily South African update. So I did add names for this region. We have the Cape country and the South African original country. So what we see here is actually this orange team and this brown team up over here being like, "Hey, South Africa, we want the title of ruler of South Africa." So what they're going to do is, what the brown team's going to do is, they're going to be like, "Hey, I know we're in this sort of like South African holy whatever," but they're gonna be like, "I don't care." And then we see this orange team being like, "Hey, I'm gonna jump you too." But then we see this Cape country, that's what it's named, invading into its neighbor right over here, quickly annexing it. And they're going to be like, hey, Orange Country, back off. And they're going to push deep and quickly into the Orange Country. And they're like, we'll back off, we'll back off. And the red team does not care. And what we see quickly happening is South Africa and this country just pushing quickly into the Orange Country, and South Africa pushes in there. And then with the brown team, South Africa does the same thing, but this time they're going to be pushing much quicker with the Cape giving them like resources and supplies. So with this, South Africa pushes the brown team back, and let's see a peace treaty here. So this is what the borders look like, with the Cape Country in South Africa becoming very close after this war. And if we see the alliance layer, we see this South African nation being like, hey, I'm not the only South African. You are too. So what they do is they're going to give the Cape Country a higher position in the South African Holy Empire. So let's go ahead and see that. So what we will see is the occupier of the Holy South African country is going to be the white, and then this is going to be like, hey, I have higher influence over these countries. And then the normal stuff is just going to be your usual South African Holy Empire member. And with this, these countries are going to be like, no, I don't like this. So they're going to be like, hey, Orange Team, I invade you. And I'm not going to make these invasions since it's quick and these countries are very weak. And they're going to annex border nations before they join the Holy South African Empire. So what we see here is before this country is invaded, they join the Holy South African Empire. So an important event is going to be happening. So here we see with the newly annexed territories and the strain on the Angolan Empire from they're managing this French area in the mutant country, and them just generally trying to explore, expand, and trade with other nations. This little colony area, due to its mixed up religions and previous like occupiers and all that mess, they're going to just be like, all right, we want independence and we want independence now. And they're going to be chanting, we want independence, and they're not being properly represented in the government. So they're going to be like, nah, we're not going to give you independence. And they're going to be like, no, give us independence. So what they do is they have a big revolutionary war. So there's going to be lots of revolutionaries in here, but up here also in the newly annexed territories, there's going to be revolutionaries, and they're not being represented properly. So we see a lot of this coastal land being just put into the rebellious force. Now here up here is going to obviously be put into the rebellious force, and let me turn um provinces off. But this rebellious force is going to be like, hey, we're gonna be like sending messages up here to Angola, these other nations around them that are against colonialism, like in the Square Alliance. They're going to be like, no, get out of here, stop interfering with these guys. And what we see here is a massive, just the Angolan Navy completely surrounds this area and completely turns this side away from the rest of the rebellion. And so they quickly surrender on over. But this side of the rebellion keeps on pushing, keeps on fighting for what they used to have and their sovereignty. They want to protect their sovereignty. And as a nation, they've been occupied by these guys for around 50 years, 75 years, occupied by Angola. So they're just going to be like, we want our independence. We're a different group. And since they are cutting off the Angolan Navy, they're going to surrender. And in years later, we see a peace treaty 80, not 80 years, but 15 years later, after the fighting's done, we see a peace treaty. And this peace treaty is going to be a big for the Angolan Empire. Now, keep in mind, a few nations have been aiding this rebellion over here, particularly the Square Alliance, but another nation that I will not name, and it's going to be over here, is going to be aiding the rebellion. But actually, I'm going to name it. So, here we actually see the um Mozambique country aiding. So they're going to get a little bit of land out of this. So let's go and see the peace treaty for this. Here we see the Mozambique gaining all these lands, but this little area in Angola is just kept away from being independent. And that is making the Mozambique country very angry, but at the same time, they can't do anything about it. So if we go ahead and look at what we have for the province map, we have that. But this country is going to be sort of like a federation. But first, we see them giving up some different religious lands that are not connected by religion and are more familiar with other countries. So they're not going to give up land. They're going to give up like rights to the land, like hunting rights, resource rights, and stuff like that. But this is going to be our very first African Federation, I think. Yeah, African Federation. So this federation is going to be built up very differently than any other federation. It's going to give not too much extreme power to this federation, but it's going to sort of work like the US in a way, with them giving power to a president, with their origins being risen up from the country right over here, but they're going to give more power to the states and forming a proper federation. Now, this country right over here is a bit flawed because they do have a lot more decisions to make fast, but this country will be able to make its federation much simpler, much more power for the states. So let me go ahead and make the state borders. Here we see this is the federations of the federal republics or federal states of Western Africa. Now, this Western African Federation is going to be struggling at first, very hyperinflated economy, and they do owe a lot of debts to different countries. Now, this will mark the future of this scenario as they're the third federation in my series, no fourth. But I do want Asia, some stuff in Asia happening, so we might be seeing stuff like with that. But I do want Europe to partially be colonized, partially not. Mainly like up here in like France. Didn't say that slur. Um, and like the UK, maybe in Greenland a little bit, like lower Greenland and Iceland. But colonization is going to be very interesting in the series. So I want to see what y'all think I should do. But names, type them in the comments. Please do. Love you all. Don't forget to like and subscribe.